Good morning. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. Our producer is Sam, and you are watching our first edition of Fantasy Sports Today's baseball coverage. George, welcome back to baseball season. People thought I was going to say welcome to our first show ever. We've been on there a long time here. But it is our first baseball show of the season. I always say a little bit bittersweet because love doing football, and George really enjoyed the Super Bowl naturally, and a lot of fun to watch that. But it's time to turn the page here. Most people get their fantasy baseball season fired up in a month or so from now, but here on FST, we cover it for you for the next 6-7 months before football starts. And not only have pitchers and catchers reported, George, but they're also throwing. And by this time next week, there'll be games being played too. So it'll be a lot of fun to go over with you. Certainly, it seems like the majority of the bigger transactions are in the books. We're still going to get some between now and next week too, I would imagine. And we're going to go over all of them, everything that happened last year and translate it to this year as well. So welcome back to baseball, George.
Yeah, it's always listen, I'm a baseball guy. I love baseball. It's more romantic for me. It's the only sport my father and I agreed upon. The only thing my father and I really agreed upon was baseball and our love of the Yankees. Yankees' first spring training game that's on TV. Yes, I know these things. It's next Friday. And, yeah, I'll be watching, Craig. I'll actually watch the spring training games. It's like watching first week of preseason football. Get excited, watch it. By week 2, by week 3, like, all right, when's the regular season starting? I need to see games that count here. I can't keep watching guys I've never heard of here. But it's good to hear the mid-popping, everything that's going on in spring training there. And away we go.
Yeah, it'll be a fun spring training season and fun to cover for you here on SportsGrid. Naturally, no huge injuries thus far. It's like the worst thing possible is we start off a show with injuries, but at least for this week, we're not going to do that. Let's start off with the big stories in baseball this week. The biggest story of all was the Boston Red Sox signing Alex Bregman, Gold Glove Award winner, World Series champion, arguably top 5 third baseman in fantasy for a number of years. And certainly he now heads over to the Boston Red Sox, where it looks to me, George, I know the numbers say 3 years, 120. It looks to me, George, that Alex Bregman signed a 1-year deal with the Boston Red Sox, very similar to J.D. Martinez's deal several years ago, albeit a little bit more money, where he, I think personally, George, looked at the market, didn't love a 1-year deal with the Cubs, didn't love a 1-year deal with some other teams. If you look at his stats in Boston, they're fantastic. So, George, I think if Bregman hits 28 home runs and drives in 90 and, has an OPS of, 900 and on base of 35%, I guess it's around 300. I think he's a free agent again after this season. So that's what Boston, I think, is hoping for too. But anyway, it is a 3-year, $120 million deal. And he definitely does help their lineup quite a bit. Boston adding Crochet, Buehler, some other pieces as well. I don't think it makes them a World Series team. But from a fantasy perspective, I give Bregman a slight bump over Houston to Boston this season.
Agreed. Listen, you play in Fenway Park, right? You get 81 games there. I get it. The Crawford box in Houston, they're close as well here. But, the Green Monster goes all the way across left center field. It's a good hitter's ballpark there. And as you said, the Red Sox, they have a good lineup. Listen, I may not be a Bregman guy for different reasons here, but that being said, he's a good player and he will help the team. And it's funny how you said that. It's like sort of the Mets with Alonso. They really hope this was a 1-year deal because it means he had a good year and he's putting himself back on the market. Although I'm telling you, I don't see where he's getting $40 million next year. I don't care what kind of year he has. All right, he's going to be 30. He's 31 in 6 weeks, March 30th. He's going to be 32 at the start of next season. He ain't getting that kind of deal here. So he's going to have to take probably a shorter year. If the rumors were true, he turned down 6 years, 171. I don't see him passing that next year either, if that's what he's looking for here. So he'll make them better. But, Craig, I think the Red Sox have an interesting conundrum because he really needs to play third base for a couple of reasons. He's better at third base, and Devers is terrible at third base. Right, he's not a very good defensive third baseman. The Red Sox would be a better team if he was a DH and Bregman was the third baseman, and you bring up that top young prospect to play second base. But as you said, if this is a 1-year deal, how do you do that to that who doesn't want to move? And then you move a DH this year and tell him next year, you know what? Go back to third. We're okay with it after all. So good luck with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, he would. If you think about it, Bregman would have 2 years, $80 million left. And I understand your point, George. He's not going to get maybe the AAV of 40 a year, but you're meaning to tell me that if Bregman has a big year, that he can't get 150 million after the season? I think he can. So the way I see it, it's I should quantify that. It's a very possible 1-year deal. That's the way that I see it there. And look, if you want to bring up JD Martinez, he did not opt out. Remember when he had that 1-year opt out? He stayed with Boston. So maybe potentially that's the way that this happens here. And your point is very well taken. How do you move Devers for 1 season? But you're right. It doesn't make sense for Bregman to play any other position than third base. He won a Gold Glove, but they have Cassis at first and they have Devers at third. So we will see. I've always been a big Bregman fan. I know you have not, but he's always been good to me, so I like him. Okay, so Marcus Stroman. Let's get to the Yankees here, George, and weigh in on this. This has been like the hate to say controversy of the week, but when you have really nothing going on in pitchers and catchers reporting, then something potentially, a quote could come out like this, where Stroman says, well, Stroman first didn't report. That was a big story. It feels like maybe, I don't know, George, did somebody get to him all of a sudden and tell him to report? Because it went from he's not going to show up to all of a sudden he's there the next day. Then asked about coming out of the bullpen, because we know the Yankees have a plethora of starting pitching, and once they got Max Fried, I don't know what the role was for Stroman anymore, but he said that he will not come out of the bullpen. George, they're going to trade Stroman, right? Like this is going to be in the thief of the night, right by opening day, right before the beginning of the season. First day ends up in Seattle or somewhere else. I cannot see him starting the season with the Yankees. It's just his salary is high, but it's the Yankees. They'll eat most of it. He'll end up somewhere else. This is probably a good story for us to talk about, but I think he's a non-factor with the Yankees this season. I expect him to be somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, Cash has been trying to trade him all winter, but he's been trying to trade him for, I don't know, you want to call it equal value or not eating money, but he's going to have to eat it. He makes, what, $17 million this year, which is not really the biggest problem. It's still too much. We just saw what Nick Pivetta signed for, right? 4 years, yeah. 55, and Pavetta's better. But he's got an option for next year as well. If he pitches, I want to say it was 140 innings, might have been 150. So and that kicks in, and no one wants to pay that. Not that I think he'll make 140, 150 anyway. He'll get hurt by June, July, which doesn't help the Yankees cause any. But I agree with you. He's going to get moved. The Yankees going to have to eat, I don't know, half the contract, maybe more than half, and they'll get a middling prospect in return here. There's no spot for Stroman here. He's not going to be a starter on the Yankees. He's at best number 6. Right, you got Cole, you got Fried, you got Rodon, Schmidt, Hill. That puts him at 6 there. All right, so that's what he is here. If he's not going to throw in the bullpen, well, then what are you going to do? You're going to be a rah-rah guy in the dugout because you're not doing anything else here. He'll be moved eventually.
Yeah, he will. And again, you know, maybe some team takes on 10 of the 17 million or something like that, still on a 1-year deal. That's very reasonable for a player like that. Brian Snitker, the manager of the Braves, very quiet this offseason, didn't really do a heck of a lot. Maybe the reason why is because they think they're going to get their guys back sooner than later. It doesn't look like Ronald Acuna Jr. or Spencer Strider going to pitch at least play in the first couple of weeks of the season. I know Acuna is back supposedly in May, maybe Strider a little bit after that. But fantasy-wise, this is sort of the dynamic where you have to project where you're going to take some of these players. But injuries are just such a big part of the game at this point. I really have no issue on Acuna at all, taking him. I think he's going too low in drafts. Strider, I'm a little more careful with because even coming off that injury, how many innings is he going to throw anyway this year? 120?
And that's probably being about right? That's to me, doesn't getting hurt anymore. He's not making 32 starts. That's not happening. First start I don't really want him. I mean, listen, I'll take anybody depending on what the value is, right? Depending on what round he's going in. But I'm not aiming for him. And Kuna, by the way, I don't want either. Last time he came back from ACL, he didn't run at all. That's a big part of his value here. He could struggle for a while, going to miss the first month. Once again, talk to me about what round he's going, what the value is, and I might take him. But I'm not targeting him is really what I should be saying.
All right, let's take a quick time out on fantasy sports today. Did you watch the end of last baseball season from a fantasy perspective? George and I are going to recap some of the things that happened and some players that are in new places. So stay with us on FST. We'll be right back.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz on the show. And fantasy baseball used to be, George, a number of years ago, it was very light-hitting players around the diamond, but first base was always that position that you could kind of wait on because you were going to get your Chris Carters, your 30 home runs, no matter what from that position. There was always somebody that could qualify and play that position. It really has not been the case anymore, especially going into this year based on last year's numbers. You probably have a tier of 4 there that you're extremely comfortable with. I know Spencer Steer's good, but it's those first 4 that you're okay, I got one of the, I hate to say elite because I just basically this is a crapshoot a lot of times with guessing on humans, but Alonso, Olsen, Harper, Vlad Guerrero Jr., very thrilled with that, especially with Guerrero going into a contract year. And then you're sort of taking a shot on the rest of these players here, George. This is not an enticing list. And when you consider Sal Perez qualifying at first, being a catcher, Michael Bush, I don't even want to have anything to do with that. So, maybe honestly that there's some players that are up and coming or younger players that we could probably get into here. But naturally, I think that there's going to be a very strong tier here at the top, and then a little bit of a guessing game after that. So that's what I got. And by the way, Vlad Jr. to me is the most interesting name here on the list in a show everybody season what I can do. So I think this goes the way of Vlad Jr., and I think maybe he ends up number 1 at the end of the season.
He could get moved at the deadline, right? If Toronto's out of it, and they're not going to get anything for him. He's going to want a massive contract, all right? Probably north of $400 million. Which is going to be an interesting because he's not that kind of player. Not really. Doesn't add you much on defense or base running, and his physique might scare some people. 4 or 5 years down the line, what that's going to look at. But we don't care about that unless you're playing in a dynasty or a keeper league. I think he's at the top. First base is weird because, like you said, it's top heavy. If you don't get one of the top 4 or 5, you can wait. Really, you're going to hope on the Pasquantinos of the world. You mentioned Perez or Bellinger, who still qualifies at first base, and see how that works out for you. Tristan Casas. I think Guerrero should have a monster season. I do. That ballpark's a bandbox. It was a bandbox before they moved the fences in a couple of years ago. But he doesn't really hit all that well in Toronto. So it's a strange situation there. I don't think he's a first-round pick, but anytime the second round after that, he is. I would still prefer a more well-rounded player, Freddie Freeman or Olsen, if I'm going to go that Bryce Harper. Although Harper's another guy. can't stay healthy for the whole season here. But like I said, you need one of the first top 4 or 5 first basemen. If I don't get one, Craig, I'm going to be waiting.
Yeah. What do you think of? There's one player not on this list that I think that I probably going into the season would have higher than Bush, higher than Perez, higher than Berger. Maybe where Naylor is there, I would insert him around that area. What do you think about Christian Walker and that move?
That's the guy I was looking at. That's the guy I was. I'm like, what do we talk about Christian Walker?
Yeah, like it feels. Doesn't it feel, George, like Houston opted for him over Bregman in a way? Like it felt like that was a target for them going into the season. A couple of years, Houston's been doesn't it feel like Houston has been for the last decade, even with winning those World Series? It feels like that's been a hard position for them to solidify. They tried Abreu, remember that? Before, I believe it was Yuli Gurriel playing first base. It feels like they'd like to get that position locked in. This is the first time they've had what I would call an above-average first baseman.
Agree with you on all counts, right? I would have Walker higher than where he is. I'm looking at a composite ranking now, and they've got him 12th. Below the guys you mentioned, below Perez, below Steer, Bellinger, right there. I would have him probably 9th. So we're not talking a big difference here. I'd have him behind Naylor, behind Pasquantino, although you make an argument I would take him over Pasquantino as well. It depends on how much power you want there. But I would have him right in that 8 to 9 range, behind Naylor, but right there. Like I said, just tier 2. That's what he is, tier 2 with some upside here. So, Craig, let me ask you a question. Do you get a little worried about guys who move? He's going from Arizona. He's switching leagues here, got a new town, new team. That worries me a little bit at times.
I mean, we would have had this conversation, I believe it was 3 years ago. I mean, man, the years just fly by. I know it wasn't last year. I don't think it was the year before that. But do you recall, George, like talking about the huge move that Houston made by acquiring Jose Abreu? Like that was at the time, he was the star of the White Sox, right? Like that was a really big move. He was older, so he didn't get like a huge deal. But nobody could have expected his career to end in Houston. I mean, it ended in Houston. Is the former MVP of the.
I mean, Abreu, he was an older player, so we were a little bit worried about him, about what if he could create. I don't think anybody saw him creating that quick. And he went from, let's face it, a great hitter's ballpark for the Chicago White Sox to Houston, which is still above average, but it's not, it's not Chicago. That being said, no one saw him cratering like that. On a better team, too, where he had protection, right, between guys who could hit around him, Altuve, the aforementioned Bregman, Alvarez, Tucker. I mean, you would have thought he would have had, even if he's batting fifth, he's going to drive in a ton of runs here. He just puts the bat on the ball. But he may be one of those guys, Craig, that today's pitching – caught up to him how hard everybody throws now. Everyone's throwing 98 miles an hour, and I wonder if that just at his age he couldn't catch up to that anymore without cheating massively.
Hey, do you see Goldschmidt having a little swan song here in New York or no?
Well, there are no bad one-year deals, so I look at it that way. He certainly can't be any worse than Anthony Rizzo. Rizzo was terrible last year. I mean, utterly awful. Couldn't field it, couldn't hit it or field it.
Unsigned.
Now, Goldschmidt, that's a little surprising. February 15th. There's a lot of unsigned players, by the way.
Yeah.
Unsigned for February 15th. It's unreal. As for Goldschmidt, he's not the number one guy, right? I'm trying to figure out the Yankees lineup. I got him hitting 5th or 6th, because the Yankees like to go the lefty-righty thing, which puts him behind Stanton at 6. He did hit better the last third of last season. That's what the Yankees are banking on. It was just a bad 2/3 for whatever reason. That he'll hit fine here. Like I said, as a Yankee fan, he can't be any worse than Rizzo, and defense will be a hell of a lot better. So it is a plus. But fantasy-wise, he's a name. I'd be very careful about drafting the name.
Yeah, former MVP of the National League. And Goldschmidt, several years ago, did, I believe it was one of his last years in Arizona, did have has had a brutal first half and then turned it on in the second half as well. He's more of a second-half player. All right, let's take a quick timeout on Fantasy Sports Today. We'll take a look at what happened at the second base position. A lot of changes, by the way, on teams as well. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
A lot of moving parts at second base in fantasy baseball, including a future Hall of Famer who George hates, maybe moving to the outfield. I can't figure this one out as well because Houston did not get Alex Bregman back. So why in the world would Altuve be moved to left field? Maybe, George, you can figure this one out for me. But he was the second-ranked second baseman from last year. Ketel Marte at the top again. Feels like Marte is a rock-solid choice in fantasy, however you look at it. Zach Geloff from the A's. We don't call them Oakland anymore. They're in Sacramento. Who knows how that park is going to play? Probably have to do a deeper dive on that park before we start the season. One of my favorite players, Ceddanne Rafaela, who a lot of people love or hate. Like, there's no middle ground for him on Boston. He qualifies there as well. Marcus Semien, I think that's my cut line. Although Willie Castro did have a nice season last year. I don't know if that's repeatable. And then a bunch of guys after that. Honestly, I kind of like Westberg more than some of these on Baltimore. I really like the lineup he plays in. I like the park he plays in. So that's one name I want to mention. Also, Gleyber Torres moves over to Detroit. India moves over to Kansas City. Maybe India's numbers are a little bit better. It feels like he was miscast in Cincinnati for a number of years as well. So there is some strength here, and I feel like it even goes deeper than 10. There's a lot of names that we won't mention going into the season as well. And then, of course, George, you have the one player that's probably the most polarizing name here who qualifies at first and third, who I'll get to here in just a minute. But right there, is that Morel that we're going to talk about there? Sorry. Okay. And that's Luis Arias of the San Diego Padres, who, generally speaking, is going to lead the league in hitting, qualifies at second, qualifies at first, but doesn't really do much else. Very popular, very talked about player, too, in fantasy as well. Gives you one thing and nothing else. So take it from there, George. That's the way I set up second base this season.
Yeah, second base is another position. If you don't get one of the first couple of guys, it gets real trouble real quick, right? Ketel Marte had a fantastic season, MVP season last year. Semien, not as much here, but I would still take my shot with him. Altuve, he's the guy that Craig's talking about that I hate for, once again, I would think obvious reasons. Ozzie Albies, I'll certainly go with Ozzie. After that, I get real worried real quick. And what's another one? If I don't get one of those guys for whatever reason, I'm waiting. I'll take my shot later on the everybody else. Maybe Westberg has a good year with Baltimore. If I'm going lower down here, Jackson Holiday might be an option here. Bryson Stott. with Philadelphia. These guys qualify at second base. Jimenez goes to Toronto, better hitters ballpark. Maybe it works out there. Like I said, I can find positives and negatives for all these guys here. It's going to be rolling the dice and hitting one. All right, you mentioned Gleyber Torres. Detroit, not the greatest hitters ballpark, so I can't think that's going to work out great for him. But, he's going to be more of the guy there, so maybe it does. Less pressure. Brandon Donovan maybe becomes that prospect. Second base is an issue. A lot of these positions are issues. We don't have it's a different era in baseball. You mentioned Arias is sort of a throwback, an on-base guy without a lot of power. He's a guy, Craig, I'd want if I'm having problems in the average category.
What am I missing with Altuve being moved? What am I? Because I understand when Bregman, they were thinking of moving, I guess because they got Isaac Paredes, right? Like that's part of this. But I mean, I must be missing something. Can Altuve not play second anymore?
I mean, he did have. Remember, he had the yips a while back. I mean, is that part of this?
A long time ago, man.
Like yes, it was a couple of years ago, but I went through because I don't have an answer for you. I assumed like you, Craig, that once they Bregman went away, okay, Altuve's going to play second again, but they're going to keep him out there. I don't know why. All right, I'm not complaining, mind you. I'm going to add extra eligibility eventually, where it's 10 games, 20 games, whatever your league has. I'll go for it. It certainly can't hurt, but I don't have a reason for you as to why they're doing this.
Yeah. Luis Garcia, also nice season for Washington. Sam's happy to bring up a national here on the show. He's another player that's ranked within the top 10. Matt McClain was a really popular pick in fantasy last year, really popular. And then, he ended up missing, I think, like the majority of the season last year. So tough go if that's the case. I think George is right. A lot of risky players here. Of those players we mentioned, I sort of see it the same way as you. I think Simeon is the value guy there because it seems like Simeon is 1 year on, 1 year off. And if last year is the 1 year off, maybe this year is the 1 year on with the Texas Rangers. So maybe that's the way that I would go there. All right, coming up next, no shortage of players here at shortstop to go over. What does the future look like in fantasy? And certainly 2 of the top 3 or 4 picks in fantasy are coming from this position. So when we return next, we'll do more fantasy sports today here on SportsGrid. Craig Mish and George Kurtz, our baseball coverage beginning today. Hope you had a great Valentine's Day. We'll be back after these quick messages here on FST on SportsGrid, exclusively Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
To win in baseball, you probably have to have an elite shortstop. To win in fantasy, you probably have to have an elite shortstop. It's just the nature of the game, George. This is where the game has changed so much when you and I were growing up, where you just wanted to make sure you had defense at that position. Now in fantasy, you got to make sure you get offense at that position. You cannot have, Omar Vizquel playing shortstop for you in fantasy anymore. It does not exist. And a lot of the top picks are coming from this position. In fact, both Elly De La Cruz and Bobby Witt, I mean, you can make the case it's pick 2, pick 1, pick 3. I mean, both of those guys are right at the top. Elly was a monster last year for fantasy purposes with all the home runs and all the stolen bases. Gunnar Henderson became a superstar last year. He's number 2. Willy Adames is moving over from Milwaukee to San Francisco. I'd probably move him a lot down based on that. And then Bobby Witt Jr., I guess there's some debate. Is Ohtani the number 1 overall pick in the draft? Is Bobby Witt the number 1 overall pick in the draft? It depends on your format, how you can use Ohtani. And if you can't use him in the way you want, you're probably taking Witt. Ezekiel Tovar, who really became a superstar last year for the Colorado Rockies. So we love that. And, I probably can keep going here a little bit more. Lindor, Cruz, Neto, Volpe. Rafaela qualifies at so many positions. That's why he's valuable there. But I'll stop there at those 10. I don't think you can go wrong, by the way, with a lot of these names here. I'm very high on Tovar, too, playing in Colorado. It doesn't mean they're going to win, but he's in a great environment. He's not blocked by anybody either. There's no, some silly veteran that the Rockies have brought in this year to play over their young guys, so that's good. And, I don't think that we've seen the best of O'Neal Cruz, too. O'Neal Cruz has had these months where he's looked like the best fantasy player on the planet and then drops off too if he could ever get his stuff more consistent. So this list is phenomenal. You got to have somebody good here.
Yeah, this might be, like I said, if you have a choice between a shortstop and your second baseman there, you might want to choose second base because shortstop is definitely deeper here. You say we start with Bobby Witt, who's probably no worse than your 3rd overall pick. All right, most of the mock drafts I've done so far. Ohtani is still going number 1. He just, I don't think he's not going to steal as many bases as he did last year, but he's still going number 1. Judge 2, and then Witt is 3. You want to take Witt over Judge? Don't really have an issue with it. I think Judge gets a little an edge there, A, because of the power, and B, because outfield. We generally start at least 4, a lot of leagues 5 of these guys. So that might be why Judge gets the advantage there. But Witt's there. You mentioned all the other players. It's deep. I'll wait. Listen, do I want someone like
you gotta have a good one on this list, man. This can't miss. We don't. And by the way, there's one name that's not even on here. He missed, I think, 40 games last year or so, and he was the number 1 fantasy pick last year. Trey Turner. Trey Turner is, if he doesn't miss
last year too.
If he doesn't miss 40 games, he's 30-30. He's.
What about Corey Seager? We don't even have him on this list. He gets hurt a lot as well. But he's also a top, listen, I think a lot of it.
Why are you, George, here's what I don't understand. So, sorry to cut you off. Why are you saying wait, though? Don't you want to have, don't you have to secure yourself one of, by the way, if you're playing roto leagues, why not take 2 of these guys? One at short, one at middle infield. This is the strongest.
You're going to eat at second base or first base. Maybe both.
Maybe not, though.
It depends on your strategy. You can wait at shortstop. And the list I'm looking at here,
I don't know that I see it
O'Neal Cruz is listed at the 14th best shortstop, which is nuts, by the way. I'll take O'Neal Cruz as my starting shortstop, and then if that allows me to get Matt Olson at first base, that allows me to get, I guess second base is a little tougher, but Marcus Semien at second base, I think I'd rather have that than get, Bobby Witt at shortstop, and then all of a sudden I'm down to Pasquantino at first base. I'm down to, Arias at second base. It comes down to how you look at it or your strategy is. To me, shortstop is deep. I don't mind waiting and getting a good but not great shortstop if it allows me to get much better second baseman and to a first baseman.
Okay, so the second part of this list, to your point, like C.J. Abrams, if he was my starting shortstop to start the season, I'd be happy with it too. I know he had, some serious issues with the team last year, but at least I don't know what to believe with reports, but it's all smiles and it seems, to me, he is a superstar also. So I don't want to dismiss that. Swanson had a big-time down year last year. Willie Castro had a big-time up year. Pena from his rookie year was down to the next. There's Turner, who we mentioned. I by the way, would bump Turner way up there on Trey Turner. Paul DeYoung, who's not signed, who, if I'm not mistaken, did DeYoung he got traded at the end of last year? Was it Toronto? I can't recall, but either way, he was fantastic when he got traded, and he kind of resurrected his career a little bit. Corey Seager was hurt for a lot of the year. Mason Wynn, Josh Smith, Jose Caballero. You got to be careful with those guys from Tampa Bay. You don't know how much they're going to play. So, yeah, I mean, I guess to your point, it's pretty deep, and I don't see a lot of drop-off from those first 10 to the Turners, and maybe Pena has a bounce-back season, too. You mentioned Corey Seager. I think that's a good call by you, too. Mason Wynn, second year, could be better as well. But I want to make sure I get a good one here. Who do you like, by the way, from the bounce-back list here? From Swanson. Show that again, Sam. From Swanson and Seager, I guess those would be bounce-back candidates, right?
I mean, I like Seager a lot. I do, but he gets hurt an awful lot as well. I think Texas as a whole is going to have a bounce-back season, where they can maybe even win that division, make the playoffs here. But Seager would be the guy, if we're going to include him as a bounce-back. Sure, but he's that guy, Craig, it's me in the back of my head, 130 games. You know, I'm not getting 150. I'm not getting something like anywhere near 160. He's going to almost a guy who needs that 1 day a week off, to manage his body. You know, and the man swings hard, by the way. He's not getting cheated on his swings at all here. But Corey Seager, of the guys you mentioned, is the guy I would take a shot at as far as a bounce-back season.
Okay. One other name that is not here, and we probably should consider as a bounce-back. I mean, George, think of where Bo Bichette was drafted last year to what his numbers were. I guess in terms of fantasy points is what we're looking at, under 600. Bo Bichette? Is Bo Bichette a free agent like Guerrero? I think he may have 1 year after Guerrero.
I think he's got 1 year as well. Look it up for you while we're talking here. But I would have aided on Bo Bichette last year, right? Because I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe on Bo. And once again, bandbox in Toronto, that line, which I thought would be better last year.
4 home runs, 225? Oh, my gosh.
He was terrible. He got hurt. Remember, he got hurt as well.
But he was like a superstar player.
Not no more. Not no more. So listen. If I play in 8 leagues, I'm going to have him in 1 league. I know that because I'll take a shot at him again. And I like to differentiate my players here and know when I play in that many different leagues. But he probably won't. Not as a starter, as a middle infielder, sure. You know, right. He might be on a team. But in a main league, I'm not looking for him.
2 more bounce back guys. And Correa's not here either, by the way. I'm going to give you 2 potential bounce backs. Trevor Story as one. And I had the other one, and I lost it here. I was looking at it at the top. Xander Bogaerts. Do we kind of know who Bogaerts is at this point? We don't know Story, right? I think I may, take my shot at Story, and as crazy as it sounds.
The Red Sox have top prospects, and Story needs to go. I think he gets. If he doesn't get up to a good start, I think he's got 2 months. I think he's got 2 months, and he can't do it. He's done.
Getting a lot of money? They can't do it. They have nowhere to send.
Sooner or later, that's a sunk cost, right? You got to eat that. You can keep trying to throw him out there. He's another guy, by the way. He's not playing 162 anywhere near it. You're going to get hurt anyway. So I don't have much interest in the Story. Listen, I don't know about Bogaerts either. He is what he is at this point. Even if he plays decent average,
I'm surprised.
And just not.
I didn't see that being this bad. Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, San Diego is giving out a lot of contracts and a lot of money. I don't know. For some reason, I thought that was a good signing at the time, but didn't work out. All right, so let's do this. We got to get to third base, Sam. How much time we have here? We have any 30 seconds. Okay, so let's do this. We'll take a quick timeout. I'll tell you who I'm very high on third base in the fantasy season is Rendon, man. I think a big – oh, no, sorry. Maybe not. We will talk about the third base position coming up next. You're watching Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. Also, don't forget the fantasy baseball season continues tomorrow morning. I'm very curious to hear Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker's take on the early part of fantasy drafts, too. So we'll be right back. Don't go away.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back. Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. Time for us to take a look at last year's third baseman. It's sort of like a look back to remind everybody this week as to who is where and who did what, and then we sort of move it forward coming up next week here on the show when spring training games begin. So at the third base position, to me, some people laugh at me when I say he's the most underrated player in baseball because they're like, nah, he gets enough credit. I still don't think so. I mean, Jose Ramirez, to me, is as boring a fantasy pick as it gets and as simple a pick to click as it gets. You know exactly what you're getting at the end of the season. Then it gets a little dicey here at third base, honestly. We got Suarez, Matt Chapman on San Francisco, Jazz, who I believe is moving off third, right? Back to second, if I'm not mistaken, this year. Manny Machado, allegedly, right? Devers, very solid pick there. Guerrero, does he qualify? Sam, you'll have to check that. For Toronto at third, Ryan McMahon, drop off here to Jake Berger, Willie Castro. I think the deeper names are who I really want to talk about here. But let's start off here, George. If you don't get Jose Ramirez, what do you do? That's a good place to start.
Now, I actually think you're right, by the way, about Jose Ramirez. He doesn't get as much love as he should here. It's just a fantastic player. It was the same numbers every. It's first round pick, right? First round pick, and once again,
Easy
position where it's not that deep here. You can sort of get it and forget about it there. Ramirez, Devers, I would have number 2. Manny Machado. Bregman depends on what you're going to do. I think he's going to do in Boston. He's certainly there. Riley, you brought it during the break, got hurt a lot of last year. We're sort of forgetting about him. Mm-hmm. And then after that, that's my cutoff line. Right? I want any of those 5 guys to be thrilled with. After that, Arenado, Alex Baum. I know you're big on Cabanero, which a lot of us are. Could be a future star here. Chapman, can he do it again? Max Muncy, going to hit you a lot of home runs. Maybe not much else there. He's a guy I kind of like to get late in that Dodger lineup. So Vientos, is he going to be the brand? He broke out last year, but is he going to be that guy now where he's going to hit 30-plus home runs in that Mets lineup as well? And the Mets should score a ton of runs this season. So third base is solid. I think it's solid. I can find 10 guys here I don't mind. If you're playing in a 10-team league, I'm okay. 12, 15-team league, it's a little bit more dicey, just like it does at most positions.
Yeah, let's dive a little deeper here to a couple of players. First, let's do Jazz, who went from Miami to New York, took on a new position because Torres refused to play anywhere else. I believe that's what happened. I think he played a capable third base, and so in fantasy, he will qualify there. But George, he's also going in most leagues I saw in the third, fourth round of fantasy drafts, which is the highest he's ever gone. It's always been health has been the question for Jazz. That was not the question for him last year. It was just moving around all positions. And the other player I wanted to mention who's not on this list, who you just mentioned, is Nolan Arenado. I mean, we are getting close to the time where Arenado is going to have to report to Jupiter. He's not there as of yet. He's the kind of player, George, too, to me, that I think is going to have to take a look in the mirror, not as far as his talent is concerned, but I think in order for him to go somewhere else, George, he's got to come off this like short list that he has. My thought with him, somebody asked me the other day about him, George, like where does he go, whatever. He's the kind of guy I think reports to camp, spends the entire time with St. Louis, and then the night before the season ends up somewhere else.
They want to move him. We know that. All right. They've talked to a number of teams. Boston was an option at one point. The Yankees looked like they were all that interested in taking him on. Not unless St. Louis wants to take on all that Stroman contract. The Cubs could be maybe they'll open up contacts there again, but I don't think so either. Trade him in the division too. That'd be kind of wicked, right? Something we generally don't see. So it's going to be an interesting situation. Maybe someone gets hurt at third base during spring training, and that'll help them out there. So it's a problem here. I think Jazz, by the way, people like the fact, well, he's all year at Yankee Stadium, right? That's 81 home games in the short porch there that he should hit that. You said I guess I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here now. Good. I don't understand the Yankees why they say, he's going to play half his games at third, half his game at second. If you watched the Yankees last year, he wasn't very good at third. He may not have been terrible, but he wasn't very good at third.
No.
All right. He forgot to tag somebody once. In fact, he could tag. It was just weird. He wasn't very good. All right. He was part of that inning by the way, against the fifth inning against the Dodgers here, where he didn't make a play at third base. It wasn't an easy play, but one you would have liked to have seen made. Bad throw from Volpe as well. So what I'm trying to say is the Yankees, who had a massive problem with defense last year, they all were terrible. Torres, Chisholm, it just was terrible. Put him at second. That's where he should be. He's a second baseman. You put him at second. All right, you let him hit. That's what the Yankees should do here. It's what they don't want to do for whatever reason. Dominguez should be your center fielder. Why do you want these young hitters to be thinking about their defense when you put them out of position here? It doesn't make any sense to me when you have other guys who can play the other position here. Yankees have no third baseman no matter what they do here. I think bottom line is this. I think Jazz is going to be fine. He stays healthy. Yeah, I think he might hit 30 plus. He's going to steal some bases here. I think he's going to bat first in the Yankee lineup. I think that could help as well because guess who he's hitting in front of? Mr. Judge.
So per at bat, there's nobody better at the position in fantasy. Okay, let me quantify that. Jose Ramirez is the best. But per at bat, nobody else is better, George, than Royce Lewis of the Minnesota Twins. Look at the numbers. It's not deniable. Yeah. I mean, he per plate appearance, Royce Lewis is one of the best players in all of baseball. It's crazy how good he is. But it feels like we're doing the Buxton talk again here. It's like the whole thing is staying healthy with him. But I feel like if you're playing in one of these NFBC leagues where you're in it to win it at the end of the season, then you're taking Royce Lewis. I mean, he could be a league winner for you, and he can maybe play 80 games. It's a very tough call, but when he's on the field, he's fantastic.
I have nothing to add there. I think you're 100% correct. He could win you your league, or he could absolutely crush you because you're not getting him late. We're all on him, but he of all the abilities he has, availability is not one of them. He gets hurt a lot. And listen, I don't want to compare a guy to Buxton yet. I don't. But he's heading in that direction, right? Just kind of ironic or a coincidence that's on the same team. So, yeah, I have my concerns. That's the bottom line. I have my concerns. I hope he can be that guy. But he's a guy, Craig. If I play in 8 leagues, not going to have him in more than 1, maybe 2, because I can't bank on him.
Yeah. Junior Caminero is a guy I like a lot in Tampa Bay. They just grind that roster and are constantly moving guys in and out of the lineup, and I think they're fully committed to him. He played exclusively at third base last year. They were willing to trade Isaac Paredes. Caminero is high on my list going into the season this year in his second year. All right, coming up next, no catcher is ever high on my list, but needless to say, we got to do rankings at the catcher position. Imagine still playing in 2 catcher leagues. What is the point of that? I still have no idea. We'll be right back.
slow play drumbeat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scarver and when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
But if it ends up being 1 versus 2, which seems likely because the Cavs had a 5.5 game lead over Boston, the Celtics 3 games clear of the New York Knicks.
They're not unstoppable, not running away with everything, but for them to blow a 5.5 game lead on the backstretch in the NBA, already being a quality team outside of disastrous injuries, I don't buy that at this time.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins.
St. John's is offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night. But it doesn't seem to matter to them.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz, the catcher position. Always a tough conversation to have. I sort of equated a little bit to the tight end position in fantasy baseball versus fantasy football. But I'm not even sure that you could even do that here because it's a tough position to fill, especially if you're playing in 2 catcher leagues. Essentially going into this season, one of the 2 Contreras brothers probably going to go in the top 5 as far as catchers are concerned. We'll get to Wilson Contreras here in just a minute because I do think he may be the most polarizing guy going into the year. And again, as we move forward, we'll get into that. But Cal Raleigh coming off a career season, William Contreras second, Sal Perez still good in fantasy and reality. You have Shea Langoliers, Logan O'Hoppe, Yainer Diaz, first year with Houston, fantastic. Will Smith, Adley Rutschman, Stevenson, Connor Wong, and want to make sure I mention my guy JT Realmuto. I know that he fell off a little bit last year. I don't want to completely discount him going into the season. So, George, a number of directions you could go here. And I guess we could kind of, we probably should just open it up to, let me ask you the question here, is how much of this eligibility question with Wilson Contreras are you buying into? He's going pretty high in a lot of fantasy drafts because he's moving from catcher to first base. He's going to be a first baseman this year, or DH, whatever they decide to do with him. And this is the final year that he'll have catcher eligibility. And I think because of that, he's jumped up a lot in drafts.
Yeah, I agree, because we think he's going to play more games, right? Most catchers getting 1 game off a week. There's 26 weeks in a baseball season. You do your quick math here. At most, he's playing 136. All right, now we think Contreras could play more. All right, and he plays in a really good hitter's ballpark there, so I get it. I get it why he's bouncing up here. I don't think he's a superstar, but as a catcher, yeah, he could be extremely valuable. So I get it, where you want to jet them higher. Now, I said catcher, I think you and I are aligned here. I generally wait. It's one of the toughest positions in sports to play. Not only are you crouching a million times, and you're crouching a million times during the heat of summer. You're wearing all that equipment. You're getting hit with foul balls. You're getting hit with bats. Runners. I know they tried to eliminate that, but runners going on. It's a brutal, brutal position. You're always getting nicked up somewhere. So that's why the offense generally deteriorates as the season goes on here. So I wait. I generally wait on a catcher unless someone falls like, I can't believe he's still available in round 7. Then maybe I take one. But usually it's double digits for me, Craig. And I think I make fun of not fun. I hate 2 catcher leagues. I really don't think it should be. But I can find 12 catches I can live with. Francisco Alvarez of the Mets is on this list here. Is ranked 12th. And I'm okay. Del Muto's 14th. Logan O'Hope's 15th. I'm okay with any of those. Austin Wells, I can live with what they can do. So I'm probably waiting on catcher forever rather than spend a top pick on, on Contreras, on Rutschman, Will Smith, whoever it might be there. I'm going to wait a while here because I'm okay, taking a catcher around 12, 13. That's going to hit me 25 home runs. Might hurt an average. So I might have to, if you're playing in categories, that might be something I have to pick up because I'm waiting here. But I'm likely waiting in catchers.
What do you think? Look, Rutschman was really good. I mean, 19 home runs, almost 80 runs driven in. Is there a thought process that Rutschman is a next step kind of guy? Like there's more in there. There's 30 home runs as a catcher. There's 90 runs driven in, or is that the ceiling for him? I still feel like there's more there.
He didn't do as well last year as was expected, right? Especially with Gunnar Henderson tearing it up in front of him. People thought he was going to have a much better season there. I think there is more, yeah. But another thing to keep in mind, once again, this goes more to dynasty leagues. One of the Baltimore's top prospects, another catcher.
Yeah.
So Rutschman could be another guy who sees himself being more of a first baseman in the future. This is something to keep in mind. It's not going to affect this season, and probably not next season as far as catcher eligibility either. So it's more down the road here. But I think there is more to expect from Rutschman. The problem is he's not going to drop because of it. He's still going to be a top 3, top 4 catcher. He's probably going in single-digit rounds here. So you're not going to get a bargain for him. So I would like him because I do think he rebounds somewhat this year, but the price is going to be too high for me.
Yeah, it does seem to be the name value with Rutschman. And by the way, for good reason, too. I am one of those who does think 25 home runs is there and a little bit more. But again, the playing time is definitely crucial. Gabby Moreno is another name I want to bring up. He's outside of that range, plays in a great park, great team, very committed to winning in Arizona. Just another interesting name for you there in fantasy baseball. All right, we had a lot going on here in the first hour of our fantasy baseball first show of the season. Coming up in hour 2, we'll do some position recap, and we'll talk some buy or sell. We got the SportsGrid 60, and we hit on outfielders coming up next. You're watching Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. Hope you had a great Valentine's Day, by the way, yesterday. Did you do anything fun? Let us know. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scarver when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
But if it ends up being 1 versus 2, which seems likely because the Cavs had a 5.5 game lead over Boston, the Celtics 3 games clear of the New York Knicks.
They're not unstoppable, not running away with everything, but for them to blow a 5.5 game lead on the backstretch in the NBA, already being a quality team outside of disastrous injuries, I don't buy that at this time.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins.
St. John's offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night, but it doesn't seem to matter to them.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.